People look at you much differently when you're a book author than they would say if you introduced yourself as an accountant or a chiropractor. Introduce yourself as an author, and you will be amazed at the number of questions you get, how easy it is to talk about what you do, and people don't mind the conversation because they become a little starstruck. And, 3 seconds before they didn't know you from Adam, but suddenly, they're saying, well, can I take a selfie with you and, with your book? And let me show this to all of my friends.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nusky. I got a smile on my face today because I'm on the line with Donna Gunter. How are you, Donna?
Oh, I am doing quite well, thank you.
Now, we were just talking a little bit about today's call and some of the challenges that we can get as business owners. Now, for me, one of the big things is attracting the right type of client. And interestingly, today in today's world, we have, those who are purely online business owners, and then we have the more traditional bricks and mortar business owners. And today's focus is going to be on turbocharging your local business with a book. Now, Donna, before we jump into the nuts and bolts of this particular topic, which I'm sure is going to be absolutely jam-packed call, share a little bit about yourself with the My Future Business audience.
Well, I have just finished up my third book called Make Them Choose You, and I'm the author of 2 other books, and all of them have become Amazon bestsellers. I've been in business as an online entrepreneur since 1999, so this year I've celebrated my 20th year in business, even though the business I started and the business I have now really don't resemble each other that much. The business that I founded in 2014, I closed shop on the other business, is called BizSmart Media, and that's where I help entrepreneurs, consultants, all kinds of service professionals stop the client chase by helping them leverage their knowledge to gain authority status in their new industry or in their industry, and then help them build personal brands and grow that brand through speaking, publishing, and publicity. I have my own podcast, Main Street Mavericks Radio. I'm a guest host at another podcast, Business Innovators Radio, and I'm a writer for Business Innovators Magazine. And if you can't tell by my accent, I live in the great state of Texas in the U.S.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, look, I was talking with you earlier about well-constructed bios and the importance of having these sorts of things. Now, it must represent how much time and effort that you put into serving your customers. I've seen your long list of rave reviews. I'd just love to now jump into the reason why a book is important for a local bricks and mortar business.
The most important reason, Rick, is that it's a very unique marketing tool in this day and age. I think so many brick and mortar businesses got swept up with internet marketing, in the late 1990s and 2000s, and they were hit with all kinds of SEO, get your website up, we're going to take your Google My Business listing, or, whatever it was called at the time. It's gone through about 15 incarnations of different names.
Yes.
Get you to the top of the 2-pack, 3-pack, 8-pack, whatever number of packs there have been throughout the years. But businesses are discovering that their clients and customers and prospects, I think, are getting what I call internet marketing fatigue. They're tired of being bombarded by YouTube ads or by Facebook updates, Instagram updates, emails. People are even being freaked out by the fact that, their phones are spying on them. If they are talking about something and they go to Facebook on their phone, suddenly they're bombarded with ads about this thing that they were talking about. And so in that vein, I've seen a lot of business owners go back to what I call old school methods, those long sales letters, direct mail letters that we used to get, that used to clog up our physical mailboxes. You'd open up an envelope and there'd be a 15-page letter, asking you to, sign up for life insurance or buy a car or whatever it would be. And that whole notion of having something physical to hold in your hand has become outdated. We've gotten so used to everything being digital, being virtual. We don't go to the movies anymore. We rarely go to bookstores anymore. We rarely interact with each other anymore because we're so focused on whatever device we have, be that our computer or our tablet or our phone. And being able to stand out in a sea of experts, if you're in a small town of, say, 30,000 and there are 20 other dentists there, and you happen to write a book about teeth whitening, and you actually have a very specific target market, you're going after the bridal industry, or brides who want to feel incredibly confident in their wedding photos and their wedding days, and they want to be sure their teeth are white, so they present the best appearance possible and are totally glorious for everyone who's looking at them because they are the center of attention that day.
Mm-hmm.
I can assure you that the other 19 dentists who are your competitors do not have a book. And as your prospects look at you, if you're integrating this properly into your current marketing activities, it doesn't have to be an onerous activity where you're having to go out and push the book, but you're really integrating it in what you're currently doing in marketing. Your prospects look at you and say, well, why wouldn't I use this dentist? After all, he wrote the book on teeth whitening. He must be the expert at it. So a book carries, even in this digital world, still carries a lot of prestige and a lot of star power.
Yeah.
People look at you much differently when you're a book author than they would say if you introduced yourself as an accountant or a chiropractor
Mm-hmm.
or HVAC installer. And that's actually what I encourage my clients to do at networking activities. Don't introduce themselves as the label that they usually use, be that chiropractor, home remodeler, whatever. Introduce yourself as an author, and you will be amazed at the number of questions you get, how easy it is to talk about what you do, and people don't mind the conversation because they become a little starstruck. And, 3 seconds before they didn't know you from Adam, but suddenly, they're saying, well, can I take a selfie with you and, with your book? And let me show this to all of my friends. And so it becomes a really unique way to demonstrate your expertise
Mm-hmm.
without having to talk to a lot of people, without having lots of sales conversations. It's really kind of, I guess, an amalgamation of what I learned accidentally when I started my business in 1999. My background is higher education administration, and so at heart, I'm a teacher. I didn't teach per se, not as a college professor, but I did a lot of student leadership training and development with college students. And so when I started my business, I'm also a card-carrying introvert, so talking about myself and doing sales are not my favorite activities at all. I would rather, I'll do almost anything than that. However, what I discovered was people had lots of questions about internet marketing, and that was my initial business focus, was helping people with all their marketing, doing the technological pieces of that, as well as doing a lot of writing and formatting, for their strategies. And so I would publish articles like on, how to create an email newsletter or the 10 top attention getting headlines, and people ate that up. And so I was a little bit ahead of the curve because there wasn't a name I didn't think there was a name for what I was doing at the time, but I later discovered that it had been named. First it was called education marketing, and then it turned into content marketing. Now there's a huge organization, I think it's based in the U.S., called the Content Marketing Institute, and everybody is wound up about content marketing for their sites and how to get out good content to their prospects. Well, what I discovered in that process was that people would come to me ready to hire me. I didn't have to have a sales conversation. I didn't have to convince them to work with me. They would say, oh, well, Donna, I saw your article on such and such site, and I went to your website, and I spent 3 hours there, and man, a lot of information, but I don't know how to do it myself. When can we get started working together? And I loved having that kind of experience. It was mind-blowing because, again, I said I hated to sell myself. And so much in the same fashion that I was using what's now called content marketing to market my business in those early days, a book can do exactly the same thing for a local business owner. It has that introduction, it really hastens that like, know, and trust factor with a prospect so that they may not be ready to hire you then, but they will hang on to that book, typically keep it on a bookshelf, look at it on their desk, and when they get to the pain point where they can't stand whatever it is that's bothering them any longer and are ready to take action, and you're the person they think of as top of mind to help them solve that problem, they're going to give you a call, go by your office, go by your shop, visit your store, what have you, and buy your products and services.
Yeah, that's some amazing insights. I thank you so very much, Donna, for sharing what you have. Something came to mind when, this idea of being in that position where you're introducing yourself, but you're actually offering a book that you've authored. From a psychological standpoint, that triggers that need for reciprocity, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I had a conversation with an author today, and she was talking about at speaking events where she would invite her prospects in and clients in and talk about she's a fertility specialist, and then try to give her book away. And they would say, no, I want to support you in your endeavor. Here, let me buy your book. So despite the fact she was trying to give it away, her audience wouldn't let her do that, which I found really, really funny.
I see some of the people who do this today. They use their book almost like a lead magnet. Is that the sort of positioning that you can always use, or are there other ways that a book can build your business?
That is a great way, and one of the primary ways that I work with my clients in building their business, especially when they're limited, they're a brick and mortar location, and they have a limited geographic area. So we take a look at their current marketing. Are they advertising on television? Do they have billboards out? Are they on the sides of buses? Do they have radio ads? Do they have television ads, newspaper ads? Do they have an email list? Are they regularly emailing customers? Do they have an email newsletter? Do they have a print newsletter? So taking an assessment of all their current marketing activities and figuring out how to easily integrate the book into what they're already doing so it doesn't become yet another something they have to market. They shouldn't be marketing the book. They should be using the book as the foundation to market their business. But I also encourage clients to do things like become top of mind with the local media. So be sure and ship your book out to all the local media, reporters that you might have a connection with or want a connection with in television, radio, newspapers, magazines. And again, that whole notion of they're going to hang on to the book because people don't throw it away like they do a business card or a flyer or a brochure. And if you send it in some really attractive, eye-catching packaging along with a really wonderful letter that introduces yourself and your book, it's going to be hard for them to forget about you, especially due to the fact that they're typically always looking for sources for stories. So, if they're a television reporter and they're doing a local story on, infertility in women, well, who are they going to think of? If that's your particular specialty, they're going to pull out your book and give you a call and ask you to be interviewed on maybe the show that they do before the local news or some special report that they're doing. So it's an incredible way to get in front of the media as a subject matter expert, and that's what they're always looking for. Despite the fact that newspapers are cutting staffs left and right, because print is dying, but a lot of them are going to online mediums, and so they've got to do essentially the same thing they did in print, but just deliver it digitally instead. I always encourage my clients to give away the book to their current clients, to prospects they've got on a list, to friends, to family, to business colleagues, to the vendors that they deal with, because you never know where the book is going to end up. So rather than having to worry about, oh, well, have I sold enough books on Amazon yet? My question to them always is, well, would you rather sell 30 copies at $19.99 a copy, or would you rather attract 30 clients who are paying you $5,000 per service, whatever the service might be? And of course, they always come back and say, well, yeah, I want 30 people paying me $5,000. Of course, I'm not stupid.
There's absolutely no doubt about it, Donna. I pick up a book, Donna, and I love the feeling of a book. And and call me old school, but I love flicking through the pages. But I've recently, well, not so much recently now, but I've also been taking those books and I often see both the digital EPUB version, ebook version sort of deal. Should you have both?
Oh, absolutely. As much as I might like to give out copies of my book, or my clients might like to give out copies of their book, there is a breaking point, where you can't afford to give books to every single solitary person that you know.
Yeah.
And so part of a shortcut process is, especially if you're doing some mass advertising or having a lot of traffic driven to your website, is offer the digital version of your book for free in order to attract traffic and get people on an email list, because the biggest mistake people make in publishing books is that they don't have a call to action in the book. Sometimes the call to action is to get the book itself, but for people that might pick it up in Amazon and you really don't have any control or any knowledge of who buys your book at Amazon. Amazon does not freely share that information. They'll send you some royalties, but you have no idea who purchased the book. So you need some way to make a connection with those customers that you don't have any direct contact with. So you need a call to action in the book. It might be for a checklist, an audio, a video, some kind of PDF download file. it's something that's not really available anywhere else on your site, and it's something that takes somebody to the next step of the subject matter that you've talked about in your book to make them want to know more. Or say you've got a book, maybe you did a book on HVAC repair, and you have a checklist of the top vendors that you deal with if you're buying your own parts, but you don't really talk about that in the book. But that's an extra benefit that you offer to get somebody on your list. And so it needs to compel somebody to think, oh, I really got to get that, after they've read the book, in order to be effective. And your list is your gold mine. It's your asset. It's not something that anybody can take away from you. So much focus these days is on social media profiles, on your Facebook page, on your Instagram account, your Twitter account. But, at any point in time, those things can go away because they're not owned by you. Those social media companies let you lease them, so to speak. That's becoming, lease them for free. That's becoming, I think, less and less frequent, especially as you look at what goes on with Facebook and the fact that free stuff has much less reach than it did even as little as 5 years ago, and they're really, really pushing now for more money. It's like, well, we're going to show stuff, but only if you buy an ad for us to show it to people. And so you don't have to fight those kinds of roadblocks when you have your own list. You have a ready-made group of people who have indicated interest in you and what you do and are willing to hear from you.
Yeah, and you use this book not only as an isolated resource, but just a link in the chain to the next step in your business, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. The fertility expert that I was talking about, I keep mentioning her because we just actually had a conversation a little earlier today. She talked about that she found an interesting use for her book in that rather than having to explain the same things to people again and again and again, she would just simply give them a copy of her book and say, read chapter such and such or so-and-so before our next visit. And she also found out that it was a great way to keep people excited and motivated about the process. Sometimes in her business, I guess, people lose hope or they become depressed about what's going on around their fertility issues. She'll point out some information she has in her book. Typically, it's about, it could be a story where somebody is facing some similar things that her current client is facing, and they come back re-energized, renewed, and motivated to keep the process going. So that's not something I'd ever thought of, but that's really a unique use for your book too, to complement the people that you're already serving and to enhance their knowledge of what you're offering to them so they can get the most bang for their buck, get the best service that they can out of what you're doing with them.
There's some incredible content on this call already, Donna. Thank you so much. I think about resource when I think about, small to medium-sized business owners, and I think to myself, they're probably listening into this and thinking, I'd love to have a book, but I have very little time. I'm so flat out busy with my business already. What does the process look for somebody who's in that position?
Well, you can go the hard method, and you can try to scrape aside an hour, 30 minutes, an hour a day to write a book and, put the outline together, et cetera, et cetera. And as the woman I talked to today on the call, she told me that before she hired somebody to help her with it, she had started her book 3 years ago. It took her 3 years just to get an outline.
That sounds
completed.
Like me.
That sounds like most of us. Because if you're a dentist, you're a chiropractor, you're an accountant, you're an HVAC installer. I mean, you're busy both running your business and are providing services to your clients or to your patients. You don't have time for more marketing activities or more stuff like that. Well, if you want to have a family life, if you've got a spouse at home, kids, parents, et cetera, or you just want to not live at work all of the time. So I actually work with clients in a way that enables them not to have to write a single solitary word. And I do that by having a pretty nice, hefty conversation with them about what they're hoping to accomplish with the book, talking about the services and or products that are most profitable for them and or the ones that they enjoy delivering the most, what the problems are, a couple of problems that people have in those areas. And so we refine a topic, a one problem, one solution book that's going to be a pretty short book. It's designed to be read in one sitting. And I craft interview questions around that topic, interview them for 45 to 60 minutes, and take the transcription of the interview and do a good bit of copy editing on that to make it into a short 50 to 70 page book that turns out to be a one problem, one solution book and go through the publishing process with them, take care of all the formatting, the cover design, any graphics, etc. Their call to action, which I make sure that it's in both the front and the back of the book, and end up using Amazon, their Kindle Direct Publishing platform, to publish it. I like that platform because of all the self-publishing platforms, I think Amazon gives you the best pricing in terms of your wholesale costs to the author, your author copies. So you've got your book listed for $19.99, where you're not paying $19.99 a book. You're paying what it costs for you to print the book, which is typically in the vicinity of $2 to $2.50 per book, which is could be comparable with some higher end brochures or swag that you might give away, water bottles or mouse pads or something like that. And Amazon makes it really, they ship all over the world, so it makes it really easy to order, say, 50 or 100 copies if you happen to have a local event or a speaking gig where you're either selling or giving away that number of books.
So it's a print on demand, isn't it?
So it absolutely is print on demand, and that's the huge asset. In just as few as 15 years ago, that opportunity did not exist really in the self-publishing world. What you had to do was order 10,000 copies of the book, which sat in your garage until eternity, because it would take you forever. Even, well, I'm saying 10,000, even 1,000 seems like 10,000. It's like, what am I going to do? How am I going to store all these books? Or, I've had clients through the years before I was working in book publishing, I was helping them with their marketing, say, oh my God, I still have 500 books, that I had published sitting in my garage. How can we get rid of them? And so because it's print on demand, you don't have to worry about that. If you need 50 copies, you order 50 copies, Yeah. You do have to do a little bit of planning ahead because, Amazon, while they're quick, they can't turn on the dime. You can't order them one day and expect them the next day.
No.
You can expect them maybe 3 or 5 days, but you're going to pay dearly for that. So you do have to do a little planning ahead, but you don't have to stockpile thousands of copies in your garage and have no place to park your car because your book occupy your parking space.
And you have to wait for them. I just wonder, Donna, is this is the Amazon powerhouse that it is that the very same platform that you would use to create your electronic version of your book as well?
Absolutely. They have done a lot of integration of their platforms, and they've made it much easier to take the print version of your book and pretty easily convert it into a Kindle version. Up until about a year ago, they had 2 separate processes that you had to go through, which was a little bit more time consuming, and they've streamlined that now kind of under one umbrella to make that much easier for people. So within typically a day or two after approving your print version of your book, you can have the electronic version up and ready for sale, or ready to give away. There's some options in Amazon that lets you do that as well.
That's fantastic. I'd love to just pivot now, if we could, and move over to, one other part of this important chain of events that would go on as an author, and this is the marketing side. You've got the book. Now, I also wonder, now I've got that book and I'm thinking, what do I do with it? How do I move it out the door? How do I use it? And this is where I start looking at your BizSmart Quick Guide. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I look at it and I think to myself, there's 10 strategies in here about online visibility for more traffic, clicks, and profit. How is it that this came about, this quick guide?
Well, that was my first foray into book publishing. I had been introduced to a couple of guys, and I'm still in their mastermind here 6 years later, who were experts at authority marketing. And that's what I was calling myself at the time, an authority marketer, because I was still using article marketing. It was still an okay internet marketing strategy tactic before Google changed their algorithm. And that was using that as a way to get the word out about my business. And I ran across them, and I thought, well, I've always wanted to publish a book, but it's always been this, overwhelming, daunting task. And they had a training to make that, and made that a lot easier. And really walked you through the Amazon publishing process, which is much more difficult, 6 or 7 years ago than it is today.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to test the waters. I contacted nine marketing friends, 9 friends who had marketing businesses, and said, hey, I've got this idea. I want to publish a book. I noticed you don't have a book published. I'll offer you author credit. We'll do an Amazon bestseller campaign so you can become known as an Amazon bestselling author. all you have to do is write a chapter on whatever. And, we chose the whatever based on their area of expertise. So I chose 9 people who had different areas of expertise than me. So it would be a well-rounded book. They got their chapters in. I did some copy editing, did some formatting, put it all together, and ran an Amazon bestseller campaign. And
voila.
Shazam! We had a book that I never we never printed the book. It's just available in a Kindle version.
Yeah.
But they were absolutely thrilled with the result, about how easy it was to do, how painless it was to do, how much notoriety and recognition they got just from the Kindle version, the electronic version of the book. And so for me, that was a point where I said, wow, this is much more fun and exciting than what I've been doing, because I was getting bored with providing marketing at that point, because I'd been doing it for 14 years, I guess. Yeah. And I said, let's pivot a little bit and change the focus of my business. So that was my inauguration by fire, so to speak, even though it wasn't too fiery, into book publishing. And having had such a resounding success with that, I decided to focus more on that. Initially, I was working with the target market that I had always been working with, which was coaches and consultants, but then had a realization that this would be a much more powerful strategy for local business owners who did not and have never, ever remotely considered themselves an author, probably never had a desire to write a book, but are really intrigued by the notion of, I have something that none of my competitors have, and I can lord it over you, and I can stand out as the authority in my industry. No, I've got it and you don't. So, I'm being a little facetious there, but, it's really just this mind-blowing idea for them, because, writing a book, for people that are, 40, 50, 60, 70 and older, is something that has historically, in our lifetime, been something where you had to be picked up by an agent, but, and a publishing company. But, you couldn't get into a publishing company unless you had an agent. An agent wouldn't rep you unless you had a publishing deal. I mean, it was this vicious circle. Yeah. So even if you had some desire to write a book, it was an incredibly tough process. I think I remember hearing Jack Canfield was denied a publishing contract, turned down over 200 times before somebody finally said, oh, yeah, Chicken Soup for the Soul is not a bad title. And of course, he became a bazillionaire. Yep. Resulting in that, I bet those 199 people or so who companies that turned him down have been kicking themselves ever since. But it's now, the process has now become so much easier, so more readily available to the public. And in the initial phases of this whole self-publishing industry, you used to be able to spot a self-published book. I mean, I could, because I kind of live in the book world. Yep. I mean, I've loved books, been a book enthusiast all my life. So I could usually take a look at a book and say, oh, this is a piece of crap. This was self-published. And so we've gotten past that point, thankfully. I mean, there's still some out there that I cross my eyes and think, somebody should have stopped you before you published this. Yes, either stopped you at the cover or read the book and say, oh my God, please call an editor, 911, you need one really badly. But if you have it done the right way, and there are pretty easy ways to make it done the right way, a self-published book is virtually indistinguishable from one published by a big publishing house, and quite frankly, some of them look better. I, to this day, still go into bookstores, and I see this mostly with hardcover books, and it just annoys me to no end that they're bound where the pages aren't even at the edge of the book. Instead of having, a smooth side of the book, the pages aren't in there evenly. It's like, what went on with this binding process? Why are you people doing this? It is from a big name publisher, so I don't know if they, farmed it out to China or something. I have no idea what happened. So, so in those cases, the self-published book beats the big name publisher big time if they've got a book binding process like that.
Now, I know you're exceptionally busy. What's coming up for you next? What are you involved with?
Well, I've got 2 goals in the coming months. One is, because I live in a pretty rural location and speaking opportunities are not readily available to me. Well, they're not readily available unless I'm willing to drive 120 miles one way to Houston, and I just don't want to do that anymore.
It's just around the corner. What are you talking about?
Houston traffic is horrendous, and when you have 15-lane or 16-lane freeways, it's like, okay, yep, been there, done that. Don't want to do that anymore. So my goal is to be on 60 podcasts in 60 days, and as of tomorrow afternoon, I've got a couple more interviews. Tomorrow, I will be about 20% of the way there. So that's a primary vehicle I'm using to get the word out about my new book, because I don't have those normal networking opportunities that people who live in civilization do. I'm also starting on my next book. I've decided with this Make Them Choose You book that would be first in my Become Business Famous series. So my next book is on profiting as a podcast guest. So I'm doing both kind of research for my book, as a podcast guest, having served as a guest on so many, hopefully in the neighborhood of 60 podcasts in 60 days, as well as talking about how to take those guest episodes then and really get a good ROI for your business with how you're using them and integrating those into your marketing strategies.
Yes, there's some wonderful things that you're involved with there. You're going to be very busy. I'm pretty sure of that. Now, when people want to work with you, Donna, where are they going to go to find you?
I invite them to check out my website at bizsmartmedia.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just looking for contact information, you can go to Donna Gunter, that's DonnaGunter.com. And I've got a gift for people who have listened to the show.
Fantastic.
I like to walk my talk, so to speak. And I've been talking about giving the book away and putting as many hands as possible. So if I did not do that myself, I would be quite remiss. So I invite your listeners to pick up an electronic copy of my book, Make Them Choose You: How Local Business Owners Can Double Their Business, Get Customers Consistently, and Have More Free Time without being held hostage by expensive marketers. And I've got a special link that I've created for listeners of your show, mm-hmm. and it's at makethemchooseyou.com/FBS for the My Future Business show.
Fantastic. I can see that link there. So for everybody who is on the show today, if you're a local business, you're looking for ways to expand your business, a book is the way to go. There is a lot of things you need to consider. It's not a hard process, but there are some tricks and tips that you need to be aware of. So I'll make the links back to Donna available below this post. Donna, it's been an absolute treat spending some time with you on the My Future Business show today.
I've enjoyed it as well, Rick. It's been a great interview.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.